Hello, welcome to the Word Café podcast. This podcast has been designed with curated content that centers on the power of words. Can we really do anything without speaking? Can we really do anything without the agency of words? Yes, that is what this podcast is all about. And I am your host, Amakri Isoboye, your neighborhood word trader. I believe in the power of words, for it is the unit of creation. I trade in words to profit my world. Hello there. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good everything. Yes, that's to say we are live in the Word Cafe live show. How are you doing? Yes, it's been wonderful. Yes, so many happenings all around the world and what have you. But you know how we do it here. We come into the cafe to lean on one another, to get inspired, to get, would I say, some revelations that would move us to the next level of our living. Yes, today I have a wonderful, wonderful topic to deal with and a wonderful personality. Yes, you're seeing it on the screen already, dealing with trauma. A lot of us in the recent past have been having so many, should I say, issues coming at us. And it's like, wow, what's happening? I mean, we just have a lot of, should I say, mental health issues springing up here and there. Sometimes I ask myself, what is the root cause of all this? And you will agree with me, trauma it is. So I have somebody who loves talking about trauma, but with regards to teenagers now, yes, Phinnah Chichi is her name. Don't worry, I'll bring her in so very soon. She has this personality that you will enjoy. I tell you, you will enjoy it. The way she approaches the issues is mind-blowing. Enough. I know, yes, you want to see her and you want to hear her voice. And there she is. Hi, Phinnah. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. How are you doing?
Perfect. I'm good.
Awesome.
What's up with you? Where you are on the earth today, what's up with you?
It's a great day. I've done a few great things today already, and I'm excited to be here. I've been looking forward to this show, and I am excited. I'm looking forward to what we have to talk about today because it's
wonderful.
Yes.
I am so grateful. When I got in touch with you and I said, Phinnah, what's up? Can you do this with me? And when you said yes, wow, you made my day. I was like, yeah. And I called my wife and I was telling her, Phinnah is coming on the show. I said, yes, she's coming on the show. Awesome. Yes. I know my audience would like to meet Phinnah Chichi. Who is this Phinnah Chichi? Let me let you do the honors, as it were. Who is she?
Thank you so much. Phinnah Chichi is a parenting consultant and a teens coach. In teens coaching, I focus a lot on mental and emotional well-being for teenagers. Mm-hmm. I've been working with parents and teenagers for over 15 years. I started as a chartered accountant, Wow. I used to be a chartered accountant in my other life. Yes. But I went into family coaching, family practitioner is part of my life passion. It's the family has always been a dear thing to me, even before just growing up. Mm-hmm. And so I knew that this was a place I needed to be in, and I started it over 15 years ago, and I've been working with parents and teenagers. And for me, watching the transformation, watching the understanding that parents are now having more with their teenagers means a lot to me. I focused on teenagers because the teenage years, a lot of parents dread the teenage years. Sometimes it's quite confusing for parents when they see the changes that are happening and they're baffled, like, what happened to my child? Your child is still there. Your child is just evolving. That's what it is. So I love that age. I love the teenagers themselves. I'm very passionate about them, and I believe so much about them and so much in them. So it's a beautiful journey that I've had so far. I also have a podcast as well called the Parenting Teen Solutions Podcast. And recently we were voted in the top 60 world parenting podcast, Parenting Teens podcast. So I was very, very appreciative of that and great. So thank you.
We're honored. We're honored having you here, to rub off, those, on us. So I will ask this question, even though in course of your introduction, you said one or two things about it. What drove you into this space?
Ooh.
What drove you into this space?
Do you know what?
Tell me.
My own life drew me to this. My own trauma that I went through as a kid drew me into this space. Yeah, I grew up. Yes, of course. My dad died when I was 5 years old, all of a sudden. So he took my mom to work, drove my mom to work. My mom was a nurse working night shift. Drove my mom to work and was going to come back to pick her up. But she said, don't worry, I'll come with a friend who lives nearby. And he didn't come back. So she was at work. Can you imagine ER when you're in a hospital and an ambulance comes in and the whole team is running to the ambulance to get the person on the stretcher and then, go and, do what they need to do with that person. So my mom's team was called for an ambulance that just came in that same night. Yeah. And my mom's team was called to go get the patient. And as they got there, she was like, what? That's her husband. The guy that just...
You don't say.
The guy that just dropped her at work was back to the hospital in an ambulance on a stretcher. And he passed. He died that night.
So sorry.
And thank you. And the shock of it all. She was so shocked. We didn't talk about my dad's death for years. And me being the eldest, I took it. It hit me very hard at 5 years old. It hit me so hard that I internalized a lot of it. I thought he rejected us because no one explained to the 5-year-old what death was all about or what death is. The 5-year-old just made her own assumptions and lived life through those assumptions. Feeling rejected, feeling ashamed. Can you imagine a 5-year-old feeling ashamed of death? Feeling ashamed that her dad died? I mean, what kind of burden is that? And so that was, exactly. And so that was my own journey through trauma, through my teenage years that I found very, I didn't have a lot of people I could confide with in those things because no one else was going through all that stuff, I thought. Everybody else was enjoying, had their parents, had their dads. And so I felt that the teenage years was a period that if teenagers can get the teenage years right, because that is the foundation to their adulthood, then they get into their adulthood more prepared than I was. And I found that I had the burden to help teenagers through that.
So how did you go through those years?
Cool.
How did you go through those years?
Because of the assumptions I had and the shame I carried, I was a people pleaser. I wasn't confident in myself, low self-esteem. Even though I carried on normally, I mean, if you had seen me, you won't think of those things, but those were internal battles that I dealt with. And it affected me even achieving. Like, I used to just settle for average grades. I didn't aim for first. I didn't want last. But I was just a settler. I just settled. Mm-hmm. And I saw that even as I got into adulthood, it actually affected me. It affected me in my decisions, the jobs that I chose, me asking for a pay rise. All those things were part of what affected me. And I knew that as I started going into the personal development space and healing myself, because I started coming to terms with what's going on. Then I started doing a lot of work, internal work on that. And as I did that, I said, what if teenagers had this same kind of stuff?
Wow.
What if?
Wow.
What if?
And the what if is what we are doing today, more or less. You just embrace that, what I say, space, and you're working in it.
Yes.
Now, trauma sounds alien to the Black man. If you understand what I mean by that.
Yes.
We always feel that it's not for people like us. It's for those, the Caucasians or something like that. But you and I know it's not true.
No.
Now, tell me, because you're a Nigerian, you live in the UK. Obviously, you've dealt with trauma, firsthand, and more or less you overcame.
Yes.
For the Black mind, if I must use that word for the lack of words now, how do we deal, or how should we deal with trauma?
Okay. Before I even get into that, let me even explain what trauma is, so that the people who think that trauma is not for them, I will just explain that. So trauma is an emotional response, to a terrible event, like an accident, rape, natural disaster, a death in the family. But what I take out of that definition is that it's an emotional response, means that it's individual. Like, my sisters may not have felt the way I felt to my dad dying. So that was my own trauma. Okay. Doesn't mean that they shared the same kind of experience that I shared. Do you see what I mean? Also, any event that is deeply upsetting, scary, or harmful is trauma.
Yeah.
So trauma doesn't have to be the biggest things that you see there, the natural disasters, all those are traumas. But traumas can even be, and one of the effects that's the trauma that I had affected with me is that when I had adults who yelled at me when I was a kid, that shook me off. That took me back to, oh my God, if my dad was here, this would not be happening.
It wouldn't. Exactly.
So yelling was traumatic to me.
Okay.
And back in those days, when I would be shocked, like, why are these adults yelling? My friends or my relatives be like, oh, you're just being an ajebota, people yell, that's the normal thing, I said, no, it's not normal, because I couldn't understand why adults couldn't speak to kids, why adults couldn't talk, why they had to yell. I couldn't understand it. And that's why, if you see, most of my work today is on the no yelling business.
No yelling. Why do adults yell? Tell me. Because do you know what? Do you know what? Sorry, I had to cut in there.
No.
My son will always ask that question, Daddy, why are you shouting?
Yeah.
Why are you shouting?
Yeah. And that question is deep.
Yes, can't we just talk? So why do we yell? Tell me.
Why do we yell? You know what? It's a pattern that we've learned growing up.
Okay.
We've learned it. It's something we saw. And as parents, we parent the way we were parented. Unless we
mirroring it, more or less.
That's exactly what it is. And it's by default. It's not like you're saying, oh, I'm going to yell like my mom yelled, or I'm going to yell like my dad yelled. It's not that. It's just by default. And so we take that on, but not realizing that our children are reacting to it differently. I reacted to it differently than my sisters. Okay. Your son may be reacting to it differently than his sibling.
No, my second son just walks away. He doesn't even listen. He just walks away.
Exactly.
You're like, when you're done shouting, we can.
When you're done shouting, let's do this. Yeah. So the thing is, this trauma that we talk about, children experience it in different ways.
Okay.
And the danger that children face is their parents dismissing it. As if it's no big deal. Dismissing it like it's no big deal. What do you mean? You feel hurt. What does that mean? Who are you to feel hurt? But that's the child's own experience.
So, how should we respond as a parent now to that? Because the truth is, what you're saying is real. We try to play down the child's emotion or the children's emotion, like, come on, grow up, and all that. How should we respond?
Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Hello, nerds. Come listen to the History Nerds United podcast, and let's make history fun again. We interview today's best authors, whether they are established Pulitzer Prize winners or someone debuting their first book. Let us show you that history is not a boring class you took in high school, but a place where the best stories come from. And we don't just cover history. We also love to chat about true crime, biographies, memoirs, and so much more. So head on over to History Nerds United and let us introduce you to your new favorite book and learn the story behind the story.
History Nerds United.
We've got to believe them from where they are.
Okay.
We've got to believe them from where they are. We've got to validate their feelings. Okay. If they feel hurt about something, I hear you. Tell me more. Tell me more. How can I help?
Okay.
Because when you invite them to tell you more, they can then express what it is that they're feeling. And then you, as a parent, you now have the opportunity to help them. See, if I had the opportunity to share with the adults around me that my dad rejected me, of course, the adults around me would have had the opportunity to correct the 5-year-old and say, no, he didn't. It's something that's just happened out of his control. Okay. And I would have saved years of living with that assumption of rejection. So it's important that when children complain about something or say something like that to adults and their parents, it's important that we hear them out. They're only speaking from their own level. Let's invite them in to speak, to say more. Because the more they can say based on their understanding, even though their understanding is wrong, but they don't know it's wrong, they believe in what they're saying.
Now, Phinnah, if I hear you correctly, it is more or less like befriending your children, more or less like you befriend them, but our climb, we don't know how to befriend our children. We boss them. We boss them around them. So how do I befriend my child or my children so that I can get them out of that traumatic whatever experience? Let them know that, okay, something happened, fine, sorry, but this is how to go about it. How do I befriend them?
You love on them. Okay. And you be less critical to them, because you see, a child, and when we say this, befriending, I use the word love and care for your child, because when I tell parents, about being a friend, sometimes we can confuse our children if we aim to be their friends. So I always tell parents, be a friendly parent, because we still need to have those boundaries. Yes. We still need to have those boundaries, because sometimes if we say, my child is my friend or my child is my bestie. Okay, my bestie, sometimes I'm not going to do what you want me to do. So I hope you're going to be okay with that. Do you see what I mean? So I always tell parents, just say friendly parent, because if you say friends, children can take it the other way. Say, since we're friends, if you tell me to do this, I don't have to do it, my friend. Do you know what I mean? So be a friendly parent. But the main thing with being a friendly parent is be able to listen. Listening is the biggest skill you can have with your child, where you can listen to them so that they can open up more to you. Not listening to them to shut them down. What do you mean? What are you saying? What do you know? What do you know? Who are you? It's not that kind of listening. Listening to them so that they can share more. Yeah. And I tell you why this is so necessary today, more than ever. We live in a global society. It's not about now the people in your local neighborhood anymore. No. Your children, all they need to do is pick up a phone, pick up a laptop, pick up an iPad, and the world is in their ears.
Exactly.
So we can't afford not to be our children's supports. We can't afford to parent like our parents parented us. We can't afford in today's world.
You know what? A good number of us, when I say we live in denial, it's like we don't know how to ask for that help.
Yes.
I need help. I need help. Like for me, yes, I grew up with what I say practical African family where, you don't have so much conversation with mommy and daddy. I mean, with daddy as such, more with mommy, and all that. But now I see that it's not like that, because practically everything, they are looking at me like I want us to talk more or less. Daddy, what do you think about this? What do you think about that? So now, how do we help parents to be intentional? Because more or less what you've said here is you just have to be intentional. How do we help parents?
You see, what we're doing today is part of the how. Okay. There's a lot of information out there for parents, but I think one of the biggest things for parents is trying to understand that parenting is not the word I want to use now. See, you can nurture your children. Nurturing is natural.
Okay.
Nurturing your child is natural. Parenting isn't. Parenting is a skill.
Whoa.
Yes, parenting is a skill. Parenting doesn't just come. It's not natural. It's not a natural thing. It's a skill.
So more or less, nurturing is different from parenting. That's what you just said.
Different from parenting. Yes.
So we need to have a parenting school.
Yes. Because parenting is more about the parents, Parenting is
more about the parent, not even the children now. Awesome.
It's more about the parents. And it's then what the parent brings to that parent-child relationship. It's more about the parents. The children are going through childhood.
So it's what you give to them.
It's what you give to them.
Awesome.
It's what you give to them.
Go on.
So the key is to take the stigma off of the fact that, because and this is of no fault of parents, but because of the way we've all grown up in this world, when parents seek for help, sometimes there's a stigma that if they're seeking for help means that they're bad parents. But I always encourage parents that you're seeking for help doesn't mean you're bad. It actually means you're great. You even want to be greater. You want to parent intentionally. That is why you're seeking for help. If you don't ask, if you don't seek for help, then you end up with lots of regrets. Because this childhood age is not that long. 0 to 18 flies by so quickly.
It does.
So if you need the help, get the help so that your children can enjoy those memories. Because I work a lot with a lot of teenagers. And it's sad when I hear, I've cried after some sessions.
I can imagine.
I've shed tears after some sessions with teenagers.
I can imagine.
Because when I hear,
No, go on. Finish your thought. I want to ask this question, but finish your thought.
Yes, because when I hear what they go through in their homes, when I hear the kind of words that parents use on their teenagers, it can be heartbreaking.
Wow.
And then you wonder why teenagers sometimes act out. Because then these things like trauma and all these things come and play in their behaviors and their moods. Now,
recently, some few days ago, something happened globally that for the past, should I say, how many days, it's just everywhere. The Will Smith, Chris Rock saga.
Yes.
And some people said it was staged, and some people said, oh, it wasn't staged, it's real and all that. But looking at it, my thought is, could it be that this guy is acting something out? A long, should I say, prolonged issue that has been there, haunting him and all that. And it was like, I can't take it anymore. I just have to let loose. So what do you think? Do we see that play out in our children? I think things, long-standing experiences and all that, and it's like you have that climax and boom, they just let go.
Totally. Unexpressed trauma, things that have happened to people when they were young that has not been dealt with. It comes out, it shows up in adulthood. It shows up in relationships. It shows up in marriages. It shows up in the workplace. When you see bosses and stuff being so arrogant and being all these these are all, when you really sit down and talk, it comes down to lots of things that happen in childhood that they don't even realize. I did see a post following that day after the incident. I did see a post, and it was sharing some of the thoughts that Will Smith had shared some years ago about his family, his dad and mom. They had there was a lot of domestic violence. He remembers one of the times when, I can't remember if he was 8 or 9, where his dad had punched the mom was bleeding. He was in his room, he couldn't come out because of course he's scared. What can he come out to do? And now looking forward now to adulthood, you can see that now he feels this could be a situation where he felt, I'm not that little boy anymore stuck in the room where I can't do anything. I need to come out and do something. And when we link people's behaviors in adulthood to childhood trauma, we're not linking it because we want to make it as an excuse. It's not an excuse.
Yeah.
It's an open door for people to start looking inwards to see what is actually going on in their lives. Statistics shows the percentage is high of kids who have gone through trauma in one way or the other. Be it domestic violence, be it even parents arguing and fighting with each other, not even touching the child, but just arguing and fighting with each other themselves. And the child knows that. The child is scared.
Yeah.
And children react very differently. that could be trauma that the child is holding on to. I know young adults today who go to the gym, who are, they want to get muscles because they're thinking, if anyone dared to touch my mom now that I'm older, that's going to be it.
You don't say.
Honestly.
Whoa.
Or you see people, either they're overachieving or they're underachieving because they're now reacting to a lot of things that they saw growing up. It comes up in adulthood. Most of the childhood trauma shows up in adulthood. Therapists will share that with you. They would say that's a lot of things that they see in
corporate space. Let's take it to corporate space, because you just mentioned, you see people reacting and all that in the office. So many organizations downplay these things.
Yes.
They don't pay attention to it. And before you know it, it's out there. And somehow they want to do damage control, trying to, save the face of the organization. From where you stand, what do you think organizations should do? Knowing that this is obviously, it's a problem we have to deal with, what should they do?
I think organizations and large organizations should start, and I experienced this when I used to work at the Telegraph. We used to have a counselor that used to provide service for all the staff, and you could go in there and talk and stuff. And I think organizations should definitely arrange that and have that as part of their well-being, because a lot of organizations are investing in well-being now, isn't it? Staff well-being and all that stuff. And these are the kind of things that come into place, because a lot of people are going through stuff. And if they're not helped, if it doesn't help, it shows up in the workplace. Or you see people calling in, long-term illnesses, they're stressed, they're depressed. A lot of these things are very related to trauma. So what organizations can start doing, and some are already doing, is really investing into the well-being of their staff and their employees. Because again, the more you invest into your employees, the more your employees will be productive, and it's a win-win situation for you.
Definitely. Because it's like the would I say that word we always use, work-life balance and all that.
Yes.
What happens at home flows into the office, and somehow what happens also in the office goes back home.
That's right.
So, but if you try to address it, give it that, would I say, attention that it deserves, you come to douse that tension. Awesome, guys. We've been discussing with Phinnah Chichi on dealing with trauma. For those of us who are from this part of the world, we live in denial, but obviously it is an issue staring at us that we need to handle, and handle we must. Now, Chichi, for the sake of time, before I let you go, what are you up to now? What are you up to? Because I know you're doing so many things and all that. What are you up to?
It's still, what I'm up to now is even spreading the message more and more. You see, we hear a lot of disasters and things happening in our country.
Yeah.
They're all linked to trauma.
Of course they are.
They're all
I agree
linked
from
to
what
trauma.
you said now.
So yeah, I would say, and this is one of the things that I'm talking about more and more, there's no need to be in denial anymore about this whole stuff. We need to open up our eyes and see what is happening in our community. You see videos from secondary schools. You see videos from things that people are doing on the streets. You see what's going on, in the country. There's a lot of work that needs to be done. And it starts in our homes. It starts in our homes, because as adults now, we're reading a lot of stuff on the internet. We can get a lot of help. How can we start then putting that help that we have into place into the lives of our children, so that our children don't have to grow up with those same traumatic experiences? And one of the biggest things as well that I'm preaching around is that, okay, when we know better, we do better. Okay, let's say we didn't know before, and we contributed to a lot of things. Now we know better. Let's then do better. I love this Alvin Toffler's quote that I love to share. And he says that the illiterates of the 21st century, they won't be those who cannot read or write. They're going to be those who are not willing to learn, unlearn, and relearn. And
Please take that again. Take that again, because I saw it somewhere when I was reading it. Take that again.
Alvin Toffler, he says that the illiterates of the 21st century
Yeah.
won't be those who cannot read or write. It's going to be those who are unwilling to learn, unlearn, and relearn in life.
Awesome.
And so for all of us in life, unwilling, not the read and write, because before it used to be, illiterates, they can't read or write. That's past. This is about people who are willing to learn, unlearn, and relearn. We have a lot of unlearning to do.
Okay.
And we've got to embrace the unlearning journey so that we can survive and we can thrive in this 21st century. Because even if we do not do these things where we need to unlearn and relearn, we can create businesses, we can create all that stuff. They won't be sustainable, because guess what? That behavior is going to come out one way or the other.
One way or the other.
One way or the other, those effects of those traumatic experiences will come out one way or the other. In marriages, in relationships, in the workplace, in businesses, in partnerships, they will all come out in one way or the other. So we start with ourselves and then start to implement these changes with our children. Have conversations with our children. What do they like? What don't they like? Understand it from their levels. And then we can start teaching them. Because if we don't understand it from their levels, we won't hear what it is, the assumptions they're making. I work with a lot of teenagers that will say, my parents don't love me. And I'll say, how? But did your parents say they don't love you? No. But when they shouted at me or when they called me that name, I just concluded they don't love me. And they take that unlove feeling that they feel, they take it outside. For girls, the first boy that says, I love you, it's like, he loves me. He runs to that boy because she hasn't felt loved at home. So she runs to the first person that says, I love you.
Wow.
Or they get into so many acts. Is it peer pressure, negative peer pressure, smoke, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So it starts with us as individuals and then starting to support our children. No matter how trivial you think that trauma is not trivial to your child. And each child is different. So get to know your child. Get to understand your child. Some children are quite sensitive. Don't display that sensitivity. Don't write them off and say, you're just too sensitive, or you're too soft, or be a man. Don't do that.
Man.
Don't do that. Because when you do that,
real men don't cry.
Yes. You shut them up from expressing their emotions. And you and I know how valuable emotional intelligence is today.
Yeah.
So we want our children to be able to be free to express those emotions.
Amazing. If I hear you well, there's no shame in asking for help when it comes to this, because I think that's another problem. We look at the society as in it's like it's going to be a stigma if I put myself out there to say I need help with respect to this. But what you just said now, parenting is not natural. We learn it.
Yes.
You learn to be a parent. So there's no harm if you made a mistake here or there. You ask for help, and you go through that schooling, and also like you begin to impart positively on your children, which will bring about that positive impact. Wow. Phinnah, this is amazing.
Thank you.
I mean, go on and on talking, but I know you have other things to catch up with. We want to say a very big thank you to you. Before I let you go, what is that word you have for that mother, for that father listening to this podcast now? What's that thing?
I would say to mom and to dad, you are amazing. Just remember, it's never too late to make changes. It's never too late. You can start today to make those changes. There's no shame in making those changes in parenting. You see, because your child's childhood is the foundation to their adulthood. You want them to hold better memories than they hold today. And we live in a global community now. So it's time to make those changes. It's time to live the way we were parented. And when we say live the way we were parented, we're not saying be ungrateful to your parents. No. Your parents did the best with what they had.
Yeah.
Now it's time for you to do the best with what you have. Thank you.
Amazing. Thank you. Guys, you heard it from Phinnah Chichi. See, go ahead. Ask for that help. Ask for that help. Do not be ashamed. As in, it's never too late. From what you just said now, it's never too late. I want to start now. I want to get involved in that process with my child or with my children, because a lot is just going on out there. All right. Before we say goodbye, where do we catch Phinnah Chichi? How do we catch her? Where do we catch her?
Phinnah Chichi is on social media platforms at Phinnah Chichi on Instagram, or my parenting platform is at Parenting Teens Solutions. That's the same name as well as my podcast, Parenting Teen Solutions Podcast. I'm on YouTube as well, Phinnah Chichi on YouTube, and Phinnah Chichi, Parenting Teen Solutions as well on YouTube as well. So I'm everywhere. Phinnah Chichi, Parenting Teen Solutions on most social media platforms, including TikTok.
Wonderful. So guys, just go on, the internet, type in Phinnah Chichi. You see a lot coming up about her. Let's embrace this change that we so much yearn and desire to see all around us. You know how we say it on the show. This is the Word Cafe live show, and I'm your host, Amakri Isoboye. I believe in the power of words. Why? Because it is the unit of creation. Everything about creation starts from the spoken word. We want to change the way we see trauma. That is why we are speaking what we are speaking at this moment. We will come your way again. When I mean we, you understand what I mean by that. Till I see you again, it is bye for now.
Oh, yeah, beautiful. Before we sign off, I just want to encourage you. Yeah, it's been a wonderful time. And also, I'd like to hear from you, your feedback. You've been listening to the Word Cafe podcast. I would love to hear from you, the feedback. If you have any questions, you go ahead and questions. You can reach me at my email address, amacrigaribaldi@gmail.com. Amacri is AMACHREGARIBALDI@gmail.com. And we'll get back. You know how we do it on the show. Thank you.
Hearts and time, it has been with you on the Word Cafe podcast today. Thank you for being there. You can catch me up on my social media handles, Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, all at Amakri Isoboye. Also, you can get copies of my books, A Cocktail of Words, The Color of Words, and my HRO notebook on Amazon and on Robin Heights online bookstores. You can also subscribe to my YouTube page at the same address. Yes, till we see you again. Bye for now.